Welcome to Real Flix Reviews. We're like a book club for people hate reading. This month's theme is childhood favorites. So Ryan picked the movie 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea, made in 1954, a Disney classic. And we bring you movie news at the end of the program. This week we have Jonathan Charney, James Stevens, Ryan Preston.
And the old guy's here.
So who has the description of this week's show?
I'll do it. Of this week's show? Okay.
Of this week's movie, I guess.
The movie. Okay.
Yeah,
I was going to say a bunch of idiots are talking. Ship sent to investigate a wave of mysterious sinkings encounters. They had no apostrophe there. That's the way they did it. Encounters the advanced submarine, the Nautilus, commanded by Captain Nemo.
Hey, another excellent description by IMDb.
Oh, seriously, they had no comma there.
I saw that. Your brain's supposed to put it in there, you know.
We already talked about James.
Guys who write these things aren't quite as eloquent as Jules Verne, you know.
Yeah. You know, that's actually something I had to mention to my wife because she actually watched this with me, and she goes, "This movie's slow." Like, it's based on a book,
Written in
and
the 18th,
back in the
18th
50s, they actually tried to stick as close to the book as they could. They didn't really cut much out.
No.
Yeah,
They
they did a
really
good
only
job.
changed one thing as far as I noticed, aside from a lot of the beautiful description that Jules Verne had, even though it was originally written in French.
Yeah.
We'll forgive that.
French
Was
time.
the powering of the ship, I think, was originally like electric or some kind of coal electric. And they changed it to presumably nuclear power, essentially, because this movie was made 10 years after the nuclear bomb.
Yeah.
Which
so it just was kind of this new technology they had to kind of play around with.
And I actually thought that was actually perfect. I thought
Me too.
that doing that. And the other thing is, say, this being 1954, there weren't a whole lot, from what I remember reading, a lot of color movies.
No.
This was, in the same time frame, you had a lot of black and white because it was cheap. This was a CinemaScope, one of the first early ones, if I remember correctly. So
But there was a lot of firsts in this one, especially with the underwater sequences.
Oh,
yeah.
It first for something entirely different, and then because it looks so good, they're like, we need a movie that features these awesome underwater shots.
Yep. Yeah. They
Yeah.
did such a great job of making the scuba set. I don't know what you want to call it. The costume, diving suits.
Yeah, the diving suits.
Those guys are,
amazing.
Yeah, I mean, there's a regular snorkel and everything under all this stuff. The way the guy made it, it was just amazing.
And just the entire interior of the Nautilus was something incredible. For the longest time in the world, they had Captain Nemo's organ.
Yes.
At one of the Disneylands.
Yes, they did. Until
Yeah.
just recently when they were remodel.
I love
Which is a shame that they got rid of it. I don't quite
Yeah,
understand.
that nobody really knows 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea anymore. Well, now we can do the math pretty quick. That 20,000 leagues is something like 80,000 miles.
Yeah.
I love the fact this is like Victoria era steampunk.
Yeah.
Like the whole look of the ship was like one of the reasons I always loved this was it feels evil or feels badass or I love everything about that.
Nemo's bedroom, shall we call it?
His
with his
stateroom.
organ and they're playing. Yeah, that was a little over the top. The velvet drapes. And it was a little bit of 1880 horror house look.
I actually
I can't say my shit would look any different.
There you go.
I actually thought that was perfect because I always thought the character came across as he was the god of the underwater universe, so he needed this grand stateroom to declare his majesty.
Well, to stroke his ego.
Hugh Hefner, if you notice the smoking jacket.
That's right.
Hefner.
I liked Ned Land's genius of creating his own little guitar or banjo to play in the other room while the guy's playing his organ.
I'd like to take a moment and acknowledge the craftsmanship and you don't just make an instrument out of things laying around. There's some math that went into that.
Oh yeah.
Like a turtle shell.
Yeah.
He was really good at making such a fine instrument, as Ryan's trying to point out.
He was in prison, so what else did he have to do?
We can all agree that the sets were just incredible.
Yeah.
I mean, the craftsmanship that went into it way before computers ever came around is just awesome when you look at it.
And I also have to mention something about those natives. Man, those natives were ready to roll, dude. As soon as they found out that he's there, they're coming out with boats. We're getting you.
They roll up with those shields, bro.
Yeah, they were ready to roll. They're like, dude, food.
Well, and you think about it.
Quickly.
Yes.
My favorite thing on IMDb was talked about how they wrote funny things on their forehead. That one that said, I eat at Joe's. You know, the other person's comment was, I ate Joe.
Right.
So I thought that was hilarious.
Well, look how high-tech it was showing those lightning bolts coming out of the
Yeah.
neck, coming at these
That
guys.
was really
super high-tech.
That was really high tech, especially for the way they did it for back then. I
I'm
mean, that
sure.
was,
Yeah, years before the lightning fingers of the Emperor.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Did they? I don't remember. Did anybody find out the way they did
Sounds
it?
like
Because
20 years.
Did they draw it over the actual film,
I
or did
don't
they do
know.
it like a cartoon?
They were just geniuses.
I think they did it more like cartoon style. That's kind of what
Probably.
it seemed to me. It didn't seem so much like they actually drew it onto the
They
actual.
were probably.
they probably could have. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know.
Because I
It
was figuring what they did is they projected it on something that over.
So I want to
That's
get
right.
into
That's
the. I
probably
want to
what they
get
did.
actually into
Yeah.
the story of this. The reason why the professor was even going out there, and even a date according to MarineBio.com, is that there is estimated of 50 to 80% of all life of the Earth is still in the ocean, the undiscovered, and that less than 10% of the space of the ocean has been mapped.
So it really is the undiscovered country.
It's like 70% of the Earth's surface is water.
Yeah.
And we really haven't scratched any of it.
Why do you think it's
in
so
the
easy
entire-
to hide a submarine?
And the average depth of the ocean is 3,795 miles. That's the average depth. That's not the deepest point. That's
The
just
average.
the
That's
average.
all over. Yeah.
And I
So
think,
I love the way that they portray this in the beginning of we don't know what's out in the ocean type thing, and we're gonna go out and explore it. We're gonna find out.
Yeah. Well, that's what James Cameron's trying to do right now. While
Yeah.
trying to convince everybody, no, forget about space. There's this whole entire universe here that we
Well, he's
still
right
have
Yes.
about that.
not that far from us.
I'm very well informed of what South Park thinks of it.
That have blue aliens. That
But,
ride dragons.
Yeah, but I go on.
Unfortunately, there is no megalodon anymore. There's nothing incredibly large. That far down, there is no giant squid.
You never
That
know.
kind of stuff's all near the surface. So we're not going to find anything, that cool.
You never know.
You never really know. And I was gonna
Well, there's
talk
no
about.
food down there, for Christ's sake. If it's for
Dude,
anything large, to live.
There could be something awesome down there, like
giant
full-on
squid.
food, like what they were eating, dude.
Giant
Except for
squid
like
is
actual
real.
like
Because the
crazy hamburgers and crap.
the giant squids are real.
Yeah.
But to get
Well,
back
they
to,
are, but they're not that deep.
No.
to get back to the movie,
Wait a minute. I want to correct that. They're deep enough that they're hard to find.
True.
All right. I mean,
Very true.
they're still looking for a really decent live specimen. They've been
Yeah.
to
I
this
don't think
day.
they had a really good one at all.
No.
Everything they get usually is washed up on shore.
Right.
I do want to say that I think because I was really looking at the characters between Land, the professor, and I never caught his assistant's name. Did you?
Peter Lorre, you mean?
Yeah, Peter Lorre.
Peter Lorre's character.
Peter Lorre
Was conceal. Conceal.
Well, I thought that the
Conceal.
interesting thing is
Whatever.
the professor's thirst for knowledge blinded him to the madness of Nemo.
Yeah.
And I thought it was Land's character. His character was blinded by the fact he wanted to get out, but he wanted to escape with all the goodies.
Yeah.
The
I
ballast.
always was bothered by that part of the movie where he's like, dude, there's so much gold out there. We just need food. Dude!
No, that was my thought. It's like,
Dude!
how do you buy supplies? I mean, you got to do something.
Well,
gotta
they
be some
showed you.
bartering.
They go out into the ocean and they harvest and farm the food.
Well, what about all of Nemo's drapery? They got to purchase that.
No, they just killed
Good point.
people.
I mean,
They
it's
just
not the
kept it.
stuff that he stole from his captors that were on that island.
Yeah, along with
Oh,
the
yeah.
submarine.
Right.
And the one that I thought was interesting, that was hard to nail down, was the Peter Lorre's character was because he was kind of caught between the two. He was really a character with no direction, so he kind of did what.
It was a
either
very
Land
odd
did
role.
or-
Yeah, it was a very odd role for Peter Lorre. He even
Yeah.
admitted it was an odd
Yeah.
role.
Yeah,
for him.
it is.
Yeah,
I mean, if you looked at his career, he spent a long time being Mr. Moto for
yeah,
a long
he's the
time.
monster. I mean,
Yeah.
he's always been the bad guy.
Yeah.
Right. It seemed to me with his character, it was purely about being the apprentice of the professor and learning off of this great man and everything. But then through Ned's sort of, bug in his ear, started to kind of turn him and get him to think like, oh, I need to protect the professor from himself, and started to go towards him. I don't think his intentions were ever malicious,
Right.
No.
or anywhere near as Nefarious is trying to just get all the gold.
Well, no, I think Ned was malicious. I think Peter Lorre's character was really. I do think he saw the fact the professor was starting to, that this invention was better than lives, and so I think he was
getting
really
sucked into the whole thing. Yeah, absolutely.
And that's why I like Ned. I think Ned's. I think the Peter Lorre character was probably the most innocent out of all of them.
Definitely.
Yeah, definitely.
We were talking about Kirk Douglas and just a little bit before we went on the air here, and James was talking about how buff he was and everything. And
Yeah.
well, one of the things I want to make sure we continue our discussion on was the fact that he wanted to consider himself as an action hero. He was the man. He wanted to have the women. He wanted to have the fights.
Yeah.
He went into his career. He wanted to make sure he was the biggest guy on a horseback. He was always a winner. And the contract was even written and changed. That scene where he comes out with the two women
On his arm.
Yeah, both on his arm into that square where they're making the scare stories of all these ships going out, and we need sailors, and no, don't go, and that whole thing, and so it was pretty cool. He was the real
Even though he
deal,
got knocked out pretty quickly.
Right?
Yeah, it's okay,
We
but
got
still,
hit
he was
with a crutch.
he was one of those guys. You get John Wayne, and you got all the all the other big action stars. But I think Kirk Douglas
Steve McQueen.
yeah. Well, but Steve McQueen's almost a generation after Kirk Douglas and John
Yeah.
Wayne and that.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
it's easy to forget Kirk Douglas and all the movies he's done and all. He was pretty big time actor.
Yeah, he was a big actor.
And
I mean,
this was him in his heyday doing a pretty big kind of character.
Yep.
Yeah.
Absolutely, and to give about his character, the old guy's still around. He had a
He's
major
like
stroke and
97.
everything. I mean, he's still with us.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
Yeah, we think of Michael Douglas as old now.
Yeah,
yeah,
exactly.
97.
97.
Good
So
Lord.
Like I said,
Wow.
I actually love the song in this movie. It was the one thing
Almost
I
98.
remembered from it more than
Dude,
anything.
everybody whistled that for like 3 days, right?
Yeah.
yeah, I will admit, huh?
Yeah, and
The days of catchy tunes.
Yeah.
that's actually another thing I wanted to mention was that this is back when not only did you have to be able to be that tough guy and
You had to be
be
the
that
singing
womanizer, but you had to be able to sing in
Yeah,
movies.
yep,
You
sing and
had to
dance.
be able to sing and dance.
Dance. Yep.
Yeah.
That was one of the things that a lot of acting studios, that's what they expect you to do. You come out, you deliver your line, and then you have a little song and dance to go along with it.
That's right.
It's true.
Yeah.
It was
Yeah.
the idea of the triple threat thing,
Yeah.
which you don't hear of anymore because everybody sort of did it so shitty for so long that it's not a big deal anymore.
Well, now
And
they
that-
can auto-tune everybody like Britney
Dave, you
Spears.
had those three things. You were the biggest thing in the world.
Yeah, and that's actually one of the things I have a lot of respect for the actors who just did the new Les Miserables. Is a lot of those guys don't sing and dance, and they stepped out of their comfort zone
Right.
and did it.
They did. Yep.
But anyways, back to this movie. I was actually impressed by the way he was able to sing and dance and have fun and be goofy, especially when he's doing it with the seal.
Yeah, the seal scene was great. Did you read the little? Everybody had to have a sardine in their pockets. So
Yeah.
every time the seal did something right, they always had to keep. And they said they all smelled like sardines. Every one of them. 'Cause there's always sardines in their pockets.
It was funny. I was thinking about, since you're thinking about talking about Kirk Douglas's goofiness, I actually think he was that character was one of the saving graces, because otherwise that movie would have had a very serious overtone, and you got tidbits of very goofiness that kind of took you out of having to focus so much. So I think you got a chance to
Really?
relax, have fun, then go back to the serious bits.
I think Ned and Peter Lorre's character really just gave you somebody to relate to in the whole situation.
Oh, yeah.
'cause with Captain Nemo playing such a heavy dude
Right.
with these crazy. I mean, it was like a passing sentence that he mentioned that it was his wife and daughter who got murdered, along with a bunch of other people,
Yeah.
on that island. And I mean, all of a sudden, like it's a line that I didn't even notice when I was younger. But I was like, oh shit, man, I'd be pretty bummed out with society too, I think. But Ned and Peter Lorre really kind of give this outside perspective where you're that guy. You would be Ned in that situation. Like, hold on a second, this is all a little too much.
Right?
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
And that's where I think
Get
that
me
the
some
analytical
gold.
mind of the professor really kind of really tied in with Nemo's madness, because he's like, look at all this stuff. That's why I think they played off very well to each other.
You know, when I was watching the movie, I was trying to think of who else could have played this role but Kirk Douglas. I mean, there's something
At the
about the
time?
guy. Yeah, at the time. I mean, you couldn't stick a John Wayne in it. I mean, you couldn't.
No way.
He
no
wouldn't
way.
be able to
You'd
fit down
have
the hallways.
No.
He was a wide guy.
I mean, think about it. I mean, it's like a role that was really perfect for his abilities.
Personality,
Singing,
yeah.
Ability,
dancing, fighting, the whole bit. I mean,
Yeah,
I'm sure there
and
could have been something.
He just looks really good in that longshoreman outfit.
He does.
You know?
Right?
He does. Yeah. Yeah. hell,
Lantern John, that dude.
man, I'll tell you.
The other interesting thing is I wonder when people see this to actually get what Ned's character really was. He was a spearman on a whaler.
Right.
Hey, he's
And-
a harpooner.
Yeah,
Which actually-
Harpooner.
Sorry, go ahead.
No, harpooner. Thank you. I was
Yeah.
going to say, I wonder how many kids or younger people watch this today and really get what he is.
Probably none of them. Probably none of them know what they are. Thank you,
They never
Greenpeace, you
they never
jerks.
showed him.
Those kids read like Moby Dick still, but I doubt it. But here's my question:
don't know if I'd
humpback
wanna read
whale
Moby Dick.
pops right up out of the sea, and he just stares at it like, "Oh, look at the nice fish." But bro, you're a master harpooner. How about you get a little practice in before you're supposed to kill a monster?
I don't
You know
think
what I mean?
I don't think they were in for a
Did he-
sleigh ride.
They needed a little blubber to keep those oil lamps
Yeah.
going.
Yeah,
some,
really. I mean,
you know,
or even
whale
just the
chops
captain,
on
like,
this
hey,
grill.
I just hired this guy on sort of sight unseen. How about I test his? Hey, go kill that whale.
Well,
And,
I actually
how good you really
wasn't
are,
he
dude.
kidnapped? Because if you notice
Yeah,
during the
Shanghai.
beginning, those guys
Yeah.
pick him up and he was on semi kind of in a haze.
Right.
The other thing that I
The
thought
term
was
Shanghai. That's
Yeah.
why you didn't go to Shanghai.
Well, I thought it was interesting. So they were having long pork that night. I thought it was interesting the fact that there was blood in this movie, which during the 50s were not a lot of blood. In
Talking
Disney
about the
movies.
shark scene?
The shark,
the
yeah.
shark scene.
Yeah, I was just reading that.
talked
And there's
about
a,
it
they,
too,
they
so-
talk about that as being a harmless shark.
It
was a nurse shark.
Yeah.
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 and it was unscripted. The whole nurse shark
Right.
showing up.
Right.
This is back when Disney didn't care about fuzzy creatures, like knocking lemmings off of mountains. Read about it. It happened.
Anyway, but yeah, there was a lot of fun to this movie, especially as a kid, and even today, I think the story is one that is still a fun one for kids. I don't think it's as fast paced as what they're used to these days.
True. Yeah.
I really
it's
don't.
Not, but let me give you a testament to how good I think this movie still holds up. I watched it with my girlfriend, and it took us a couple of days because we started it late.
Is
at
she
night
12?
one night and just knocked out.
13
But
and a half.
the next
man
day,
talk.
she's like, I was like, oh, what do you want to watch? She's like, well, what's going on with this 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea? I need to find out how this thing ends. I was like, all right, we'll throw that back on. So
There you go.
even the next day, she was still thinking like, okay, now what's going on with this Nautilus thing and this guy's crazy plans.
But she's not a kid unless you're.
I
know.
understand that, but even
Okay.
for an adult,
But no, I agree. I agree with Ryan. Though it still holds up because it still has your interest. What's going to happen next? What is the next thing? And it did keep your interest. And that crazy tune does stay in your head for about 3 days.
I gotta say that the one thing that Ryan really kind of made me think about is the fact, for a kid, I was more interested as the story is more interesting about the story and really nothing more than that. And the older I get, I see the small things of the story, like the close up on Nemo to see his reaction when they rammed through one of the ships. You get to see the way he phrases, the way he walks. You really get to see his madness as it progresses.
Yeah.
yeah, James Mason was nailing this shit.
Yeah.
Oh, he was.
And you get to see
But that was kind of a lot of his roles, though. If you look at his
Yeah.
movies, that was kind of
Yeah.
him. So.
and I like it because you also get to see, because there's only 3 or 4 characters you really see during this entire movie, and you see the characters kind of change, like Ned being happy-go-lucky guy to kind of a more serious guy who's more like, let's get the hell out of here. And so I loved that because I never noticed it as a kid.
You know what's interesting to me is how would you get a whole ship full of crewmen to all say, okay, well, now Nemo is shot, now
Right.
we're going to die now.
Yeah, that's the thing that
yeah,
always
that was
bothered.
weird.
That's the only
That
thing.
still bothered me to this day.
I just
My-
don't think it's
my
like,
first
let's
thing
all
would've-
jump in the volcano.
My first thing would have been, can I get voted off the submarine, please?
I'm going to pretend to go down with you guys, but I'm not going in this hatch over here.
Right?
Get the heck out of
Go
here.
go in like the Phantom.
Yeah,
movie,
let me
out
go
the
shove this
torpedo
guy in
tubes.
a prison cell, and I'll be taking the boat out
Yeah.
to make sure he's secure.
Boy,
Quick, let's go.
you're talking about that little boat that they had attached to them.
like
That was way out of scale. There was a scale problem there. I really
that
think, you know
yeah, I noticed that too. I'm like, that doesn't fit.
And it looks like a
three-man-
bathtub.
Yeah.
Well, it's
and
missing
it-
is the faucet.
And it's all painted to look like it's steel because it was wood. And
Yeah.
it's just that was the one thing that irked me a little bit was the scale of that little rowboat. You know, it got this great big submarine.
You don't want to
with
take a
little
steel
rowboat.
boat out into the ocean?
Not a bathtub, because that's basically what it was.
I do think we should talk about one of the more technologically advanced things in this movie was the giant squid fight.
Yeah.
Because that puppet, of reading about it, was like a couple of people, and that was an amazing fight scene.
Oh, I had fun
Yeah.
slapping people around with that pan.
I actually really thought that was amazing because I also love Ned's reaction, like, shit, why did I save him? Everybody makes mistakes.
I gotta go drink that mistake away.
And nobody ever questions where he got the booze.
Yeah, I did. I'm
Yeah.
like, where did he get
Well,
that?
no, but nobody in the movie. They're like,
Oh.
whatever.
He's
I
still
was-
taking out the specimens and drinking the alcohol.
So, what did you guys think of the squid fight? Because that was always one of my favorite scenes as a
It
kid.
was a squid fight.
Yeah,
It was definitely a squid fight.
yeah. That's about all I can say about it too. It was a squid fight.
We got it.
In that movie.
So did not go like.
I mean, that squid.
Bastards.
I was rooting for the squid for most of it. Come on, Squiddy!
See, if
Kill
that
him!
was- if
Kill
that was
them
a mo-
all!
If that was a modern movie, he would have chewed off Nemo's head like a bad Barbie doll.
I did kind of like the beak.
Yeah. Yeah.
I like the suction cup bruises they put all over everybody.
Yeah.
Feed me,
awesome.
Seymour. So, what did you give this movie, James?
I think I give it a 4. I think there's still a lot of classic stuff to it. Yeah, it's just a fun movie still. It's not one of those that blew me away as a kid, but it was one that stuck out.
So, Rob? Uh-oh.
You know, I'm not the. I've been known as called the Russian judge
The
on this
Russian
thing, and
judge. Ruski.
I think if you got to remember, I mean, I was a year old when this movie came out. Well, and so it's I don't know how much as far as cinematography and set making and all that stuff. I talked about how well that was. On that part of it, I give it a 5. On some of it, like we talked about the scale of the little rowboat and some of the things that would be a 4. So I'm gonna go with a 4 overall. I think it's a great movie. It's leading to a 5, but I think because of the few little problems, I'm also gonna give it a 4.
I agree with James and Rob. I've loved this movie as a kid. It a little scared me, and I always thought it was a tad bit slow-paced even as a kid. But I got to go with a 4 to 5 because I think it was revolutionary for a lot of it, for a lot of the stuff he did. But it's still a good movie, and I think I enjoy it more as an adult than I ever did as a kid. So definitely a 4 to 5. So what do you give it, Ryan?
I totally agree with you, John. I enjoy this movie more now as an adult, especially knowing that Jules Verne wrote this shit in the 1860s.
Exactly.
Yes.
Okay, so he's been argued along with H.G. Wells as one of the fathers of sci-fi.
Right.
You know, for the things he never wanted to be known as like some kind of philosopher or scientist. He's like, I'm a writer, you know, but he just made such
Isn't it?
not easy, but he just kind of extrapolated on where he thought the world would be,
So
and kind of
I
went
think
from
it's
there.
amazing.
And it's
Yeah.
not like submarines didn't exist. He was actually inspired by one of the first submarines that was ever built, even for just testing purposes.
Right.
But just taking the forefront of what we know about the Earth and science and things, and using that to write his stories. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. The shit still holds up. It's
Well,
totally.
Yeah.
there were quasi submarines back, in the Revolutionary War. So
Yeah.
it's not a new idea, definitely not. And I love the nuclear explosion at the end where they're kind of look at the mushing crowd like, whoa.
Right. Well, that was sort of the update of the 1950s one, because again, they just sort of discovered the bomb.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that was a
Wanted
little
to-
non sequitur, but I just thought I'd bring that in.
Yeah, totally.
So I want to let you all know that we do have a Facebook page. Do you hate us, like us? Do you have a movie you want us to do, or a theme? Or how about donating to Old Guy Tech TV so we can continue doing Real Flix reviews and maybe buy us some movie passes? Or
Do
you think
Yeah.
or do you think we suck? Let us know. We might even read you on air and mock you relentlessly.
Really.
That I promise. And now we're going to talk about the Band of
So
Brothers.
did we give it all 4s?
Yes.
Wow.
And this week's episode 7 of Band of Brothers called. Anybody remember what it was
The
called?
Breaking Point.
Breaking Point. So.
Thank you.
I
Thank
think,
you. I guess it's my turn to talk about it a little bit, and I think this episode really brings the horror of war to the forefront.
Yes.
These guys, almost to the point, even though they were at Omaha and they were doing all this, almost to the point where this was the shit hitting the fan, right? And so it was, it took a lot of guys broke down during this period. We had one officer that couldn't go on after seeing all these people killed. We saw a number of characters that we grew to like in this episode either die, be killed, or lose limbs. Losing limbs seemed to be a pretty popular way of
Kill
going
themselves.
out. Killed themselves with what an idiot.
a German movie.
Which were known to fire unprovoked.
Not true, but
That's what I've heard in the history.
it's not true.
You
Trust
know,
it
you
from a
should,
firearm
Okay.
expert.
Yeah.
Okay?
I'll go with
Trust
you,
me.
but,
not true. But it had a light trigger. Guys were used to a heavier trigger, and they were forever, playing around with the damn thing. And why would you be carrying a loaded gun in
your
pants
belt?
pocket, where it's going to hook on something? So they were more famous for jamming than they were for automatically going off. Guns just don't do that.
Say what I've heard in the past, but
Yeah, well,
that's
sure.
fine to be wrong.
not
I
like
don't
some,
care.
not
There
like
you
some
go.
of the Japanese.
But anyway, that's what I think this one really brought home. It was like the first sergeant was talking about during the first real big bombardment that was going on. He was laughing because he loved to blow things up as a child, and he had, this was great and it was fun, and it was just like, wow, this is the biggest 4th of July ever. Until when it was done, and he realized how many people were killed.
Yeah.
You know, and it was
Donnie Wahlberg.
Yeah, Don Wahlberg's part.
Well,
And it was-
to me, that was something that it was like, this is what your brain is capable of thinking about when you're in the worst possible situation ever.
And
I mean,
freezing.
everything around you is being just destroyed, and your brain just has to do something, even if it's just taking you back and reminding you of 4th of July as a
Right.
kid.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
I actually wrote in my notes. I'm not sure what would suck more, getting shrapnel from the round or shrapnel from the trees.
Well, it was all bad.
There's that one scene where the guy's belly crawling towards the hole, and they're calling him and calling him, come on, get in here, get in here, hurry up. And then a round lands in there and destroys both of them.
Yeah.
And then the first sergeant, as you're saying, he's in another hole that he got pulled into, and a round lands right in there. And he's like, that round that landed in ours was a dummy. The one that landed in theirs was not, and that's the way of war.
I didn't think you were a smoker.
Yeah.
I'd
I'd be drinking and smoking at that time, even
Yeah.
if I didn't do it.
It's just like how Winters never drank before.
But this,
Yeah.
the last one I mentioned was one of those episodes that really stands out to me. But this one is the pinnacle of the whole entire series. Is this episode, and not only that, but it shows what it took to be a leader of these men.
Right.
With Captain Spears. And when he jumps right out and runs right across the artillery, the
Nobody
whole
could
entire
believe it.
infantry,
Even the Germans couldn't believe it.
He goes to the first, the Germans didn't start shooting at him at first because they couldn't believe it. And then the amazing thing was that after he hooked up with Second Company, he came back.
So
It's like, dude,
That-
I wrote in my
we're gonna-
notes, the balls of this guy have got to be very large.
Well, he was
brass.
an odd. He was an odd character. He was
Yeah.
also an odd person.
Everybody
they
fears
talked
the
about.
spear.
They always wondered to know where was he. He was out taking one of his walks.
Oh, you're talking about Dyke.
Dyke.
Dyke is.
No, I'm sorry. I got
Dyke
the
was
two
the
mixed
first
up.
lieutenant.
Spears was the real place.
Yeah.
But this conversation will have to wait till we do
Okay.
the Band of Brothers special. Just wait till you see it.
Sorry about that.
Now
Got
we're
the
gonna
wrong
go.
Got cut off.
Now we're gonna go in the movie news, and the first thing gotta say is Ant-Man. The Marvel movie is officially in production. And I haven't read too much of the story. I'm afraid I didn't have a whole lot of time, but I'm wondering how they're gonna do this. Because I never thought Ant-Man was really the most exciting character in the world.
No.
So I have a feeling it's going to be like Honey, I Shrunk the Kid without Rick Moranis. What do you think, Ryan? And unfortunately, it looks like Ryan's having a little bit of issues.
Are you still live streaming?
Ryan, do you hear me?
Are you still live streaming?
Yeah.
Kill the stream.
Yeah, I can hear you just fine. Great.
Oh, he's moving now.
So Ryan, what do you think
kill
about
the stream.
what do you
I
think
don't
about Ant-Man? I mean, what do you think? How do you think it's going to turn out? Because I don't care about Ant-Man really.
Okay, so I must have lost you at the beginning. We're talking about the new Batman Superman thing.
No, Ant-Man.
But it is the movie
Ant-Man.
Ant-Man officially
I don't know. I
got.
think this would be the perfect time to do it. I mean, everybody's kind of still amazed by the way CGI is going. It's if you're going to do an Ant-Man movie, why not now?
So you're going to have
because it's a
Some
crappy
would argue,
idea.
why do an Ant-Man movie?
but
It's no crappier than.
But they
What
already
else
but
is
they
put
already
out?
had
I mean,
Honey I Shrunk the Kids. I mean, this is like Honey I Shrunk the Kids, but people die.
Rick
Yeah.
Moranis is coming back.
I hope. That would be
So
awesome.
I would watch that if Rick Moranis was Ant-Man.
Oh, totally. I would watch the
I'm
crap out
down.
of that.
Change the whole flavor of the movie, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, that would be pretty amazing.
Have a random plant alien say "Feed me, Seymour" would be awesome. The next one bit of news is apparently Doctor Strange is not going to have an origin story.
Which is freaking weird, man. I can't believe that they would.
Stupid.
I know that everybody's probably sick to death of seeing, this is the first one. This is the origin story. This is the origin story. Because that's sort of the way you have to do it.
But what are they going to
It's
jump
one of the
into?
most
Just
interesting
some
origin
Sorcerer
stories that there
Supreme?
is.
That's what I'm thinking. I'll be honest, I didn't read too much of the story. It was kind of a last minute find. But yeah, it sounds like they're just going to jump into the story because
I hope they don't do a bunch of flashbacks.
I heard it compared to kind of how they did Constantine, how they just threw you into it and never explained anything about him. I mean, there was a bit of
That's a
tidbits,
dumb
but
idea.
That's a great way to ruin a series.
so because I'm hoping they do something and they do it well because Doctor Strange is literally
And
one
How
of
I
my
Learned to
all-time
Love
favorite
the Bomb?
characters. Yeah, he's one of my favorite characters because just of the random crap they did in the comic books.
Yeah, it was oddly dark, man.
Yeah, right. Him versus Dracula, him versus himself. I mean, they're
Yeah,
just
right, exactly. God damn, that was so cool.
it's like what the hell.
Well, there you go. Now you know why the movie's being made.
So I
Ryan
really love. If you want to see the origin story, there's a cartoon made by Marvel called about Doctor Strange. Watch that. I guarantee if you watch it, you'll fall in love with the character because it's just a great character, and
Yeah,
it's dark.
It's up there with like Deadpool. Like you can't help but to love him.
Except he doesn't break the third wall.
Oh, which is the greatest thing about Deadpool.
Yeah, I love. Looks at the camera. Hi. It's great. So, ladies and gentlemen, next week's pick is the old guy, and
That guy.
and we're all kind of wondering what movie he's gonna do.
Well, this was a tough one, and I had to bump up a decade from the last movie just to get closer to my
figured you
youth.
did it earlier than me.
Yeah, that's true.
He could have picked a non-talking movie.
But as you are all aware, I'm a big Steve McQueen fan, and one of the most bitchin' movies ever made in 1968 was Bullitt. It is awesome, so that's my pick, boys.
Hell yeah, Rob. I haven't seen that movie in a long time.
It's been a while. I
That
can't
cartridge
wait.
better hold up.
I
It will.
haven't seen it for
So
at
are
least
you-
10 years.
Well, all I know is when I saw it in the movies, it was awesome.
So
I'm looking forward to seeing
Are
it
we
again.
gonna dedicate this next episode to him since you almost killed him when you were younger?
Yes, well, I've already shared my Steve McQueen running him over story.
That's why I shared it.
You're going to want me to share it again, right?
No, I just figured I would.
Well,
you
so
know.
I'm the only one that's gotten this close to Steve McQueen. Let's put it that way.
And well, I'll never get
Yeah.
that close to
No,
him unless I
no.
dig him up.
You're going to cuddle
He
with
died
him?
way too young.
So, ladies and gentlemen, I gave the movie 2000 Leagues Under the Sea a 4. James gave it a 4. Ryan gave it a 4. And the old guy gave it a 4. Next week's episode of Band of Brothers is episode number 8. And we're doing Steve McQueen's classic Bullitt.
Yep.
And as always, we'll see you next week.
Goodbye.